Good morning, Kelvin, the secretary said, looking sympathetic. Mr. Ochei has instructed me to give you this. She handed him a sealed envelope. Kelvin took the envelope, feeling a deep sense of defeat. Can I please see Mr. Ochei, just for a moment? The secretary shook her head. I'm sorry, Kelvin. He's made it clear he doesn't want to see you. Kelvin was a good and humble man who married a beautiful woman named Debby. They had a child together named Isaac and lived happily in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. Kelvin worked as a manager at a big company, while Debby was an influencer. She was popular on social media and had many followers who admired her. Everything seemed perfect in their lives. They had a lovely home, good jobs, and a precious son. Kelvin always made sure to spend quality time with Isaac. He would read bedtime stories to him, take him to the park, and play games with him. Debby, on the other hand, was often busy with her work. She spent a lot of time taking pictures, making videos, and chatting with her followers online. One sunny morning, Isaac woke up feeling very sick. He had a high fever and was too weak to get out of bed. Kelvin and Debby were very worried. They took Isaac to the hospital immediately. The doctor examined Isaac and said, Your son needs to stay in the hospital for a few days. He needs proper care and treatment. Kelvin looked at Debby and said, We need to stay with Isaac. He's our son, and he needs us now more than ever. Debby frowned and replied, I have so much to do online. My followers are waiting for my new posts and videos. I can't stay here. Kelvin was shocked. Debby, Isaac is a priority. He needs his mother. Can't you take a break from your online work just for a few days? Debby shook her head. I can't afford to lose my followers. They depend on me for updates. You can stay with Isaac. You have a flexible job and you can take some time off. Kelvin felt really sad. He loved Debby, but he couldn't understand why she didn't want to stay with their sick son. He knew that he couldn't leave Isaac alone in the hospital, so he decided to take some time off work. He went to his boss and explained the situation. His boss was very understanding and said, Take all the time you need, Kelvin. Family comes first. Kelvin thanked his boss and went back to the hospital to be with Isaac. He sat by Isaac's bed and held his hand. Don't worry, my boy. Daddy is here with you, he said softly. Isaac smiled weakly. Thank you, Daddy. I feel better when you are here. Kelvin stayed with Isaac day and night. He read him stories, played gentle music, and talked to him. He made sure that Isaac took his medicine on time and ate his meals. The nurses were very kind and helped Kelvin take care of Isaac. One evening, while Kelvin was sitting by Isaac's bed, Isaac looked up at him with big sad eyes. Daddy, why isn't Mommy here with us? He asked. Kelvin sighed, trying to find the right words. Mommy is very busy with her work, Isaac, but she loves you very much. Isaac's eyes filled with tears. I miss her, Daddy. I want her to be here. Kelvin hugged Isaac tightly. I know, my boy, I know, but I am here, and I will not leave your side. Days passed, and Isaac kept asking the same question. Daddy, will Mommy come today? Kelvin's heart broke a little each time. I don't know, Isaac, but let's focus on getting you better. Mommy will see you soon. As Isaac began to recover, Kelvin felt a mix of relief and sadness. He wished Debby had been there to see their son's bravery and strength. He hoped that one day, Debby would realize how Isaac needed her. Isaac looked up at his father one day and said, Daddy, I'm glad you stayed with me. You are the best. Kelvin smiled, fighting back tears. And you are the bravest boy I know, Isaac. We are a team, and we will always be here for each other. Kelvin knew that Isaac's recovery was a turning point. He promised himself that he would always be there for his son, no matter what. He hoped that Debby would understand the importance of family and the love that bound them together. As they left the hospital, Isaac held his father's hand tightly. "Thank you, Daddy. I love you." "I love you too, Isaac," Kelvin replied, knowing that their bond had grown even stronger through this challenging time. Kelvin and Isaac finally returned home from the hospital. Isaac was still a bit weak, but he was happy to be back in his own bed. As they walked into the house, they saw Debby sitting on the couch, her eyes glued to her phone. She was on a live video with her followers on Instagram. "Hey everyone, thank you for joining my live video," Debby said cheerfully to her phone, completely ignoring Kelvin and Isaac. Kelvin sighed and said, "Debby, we are home." Debby glanced at them briefly and continued talking to her followers. "So today, I want to show you some new products I received." Isaac looked up at his dad with sad eyes. "Daddy, why isn't mommy talking to us?" Kelvin patted Isaac's shoulder. "Let's get you to your room to rest, okay?" Isaac nodded, and Kelvin guided him to his room. He helped Isaac get comfortable in bed and tucked him in. "Rest now, Isaac. I'll be right here if you need anything." "Okay, Daddy, thank you," Isaac replied softly, closing his eyes. Kelvin walked back to the living room, his heart heavy with frustration. He approached Debby, who was still engrossed in her live video. "Debby, we need to talk," he said firmly. Debby held up a finger, signaling for him to wait. "Hold on, everyone. I have to deal with something," he told her followers. But she didn't end the live video. Instead, she continued talking, ignoring Kelvin. Kelvin's patience snapped. "Debby, this is important. Isaac needed you, and you weren't there for him." Debby glanced at him annoyed. "I'm busy, Kelvin. Can't you see that? My followers expect me to be online." Kelvin's anger boiled over. "Your son needed you. He's been asking for you, and all you care about is this phone." In a fit of frustration, he grabbed her phone and turned off the live video. Debby jumped up furious. "How dare you? Give me back my phone." Kelvin held the phone away from her. "You need to listen to me, Debby. Isaac is more important than your followers." Debby longed for the phone, and they started struggling over it. "Give it back, Kelvin. You don't understand how important this is." Their shouting and fighting grew louder. In the commotion, Isaac, who had been resting in his room, woke up and heard his parents yelling. Frightened and confused, he ran out of his room and out of the house. "Daddy, Mommy, stop fighting," Isaac cried, standing in the doorway. Kelvin and Debby froze, their argument forgotten. But in the chaos, Debby, still not fully aware of Isaac's presence, swung her arm and accidentally hit Isaac with a chair she had moved. Isaac fell to the ground, crying out in pain. "Ow! Daddy! Mommy!" Kelvin's heart stopped. He rushed to Isaac's side, trying to help him. "Isaac, are you okay? Can you stand?" Isaac kept screaming, clenching his arm. "It hurts! Daddy, it hurts!" Debby too became scared. She dropped the phone and ran to Isaac. "Oh no, Isaac, I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" Kelvin gently lifted Isaac, trying to calm him down. "It's okay, Isaac. We are going to the hospital. Everything will be alright." They hurried to the car, Kelvin carrying Isaac, who was still crying in pain. Debby followed, her face pale with worry. They drove to the hospital as quickly as they could. When they arrived at the hospital, the medical staff immediately wheeled Isaac into the emergency ward. Kelvin and Debby followed closely, their hearts pounding with fear and worry. The bright lights and bustling nurses in the emergency room made everything seem even more urgent and frightening. Kelvin held Debbie's hand, squeezing it tightly. "He will be okay, Debbie. He has to be okay," he whispered, trying to reassure both of them. Debbie nodded, but her eyes were wide with panic. "I hope so, Kelvin. I really hope so." They watched as the doctors and nurses walked quickly around Isaac, their son looking small and fragile on the hospital bed. Finally, a nurse approached them and said, "Please wait outside. We will take care of Isaac. The doctor will come and speak to you soon." Kelvin and Debbie reluctantly stepped out of the emergency ward and sat in the waiting area. The minutes felt like hours as they waited anxiously, barely speaking to each other. Kelvin's mind raced with worry, while Debbie kept checking her phone, unable to fully detach from her online world, even in this critical moment. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor came out and called their names. "Mr. and Mrs. Okafor, please come with me," he said. Kelvin and Debbie stood up and followed the doctor to his office. The room was small and filled with medical books and equipment. The doctor motioned for them to sit down. "I'm Dr. Johnson," he began, looking at them with a serious expression. "I've examined Isaac's injury. Unfortunately, the impact has affected his spinal cord. We are doing everything we can, but it's a serious condition." Kelvin's heart sank. He looked at Debbie, who had gone pale. "What does this mean for Isaac?" Kelvin asked, his voice trembling. Dr. Johnson sighed. "It means that Isaac may have trouble walking. We are trying our best to treat him and minimize the damage, but he will need a lot of care and support." Kelvin felt tears well up in his eyes. "Please, doctor, do everything you can for him. He's just a little boy. He deserves a chance to live a normal life." Dr. Johnson nodded. "We will do our best, Mr. Okafor. Isaac is in good hands." As they left the doctor's office, Kelvin felt a deep sadness and helplessness wash over him. He turned to Debbie, his eyes filled with sorrow. "This is also hard to take in," he said quietly. Debbie tried to reach out to him, her voice soft and pleading. "Kelvin, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Please, let's talk." But Kelvin shook his head, his anger and frustration bubbling up again. "I don't want to talk right now, Debbie. Our son needs us, and I need to focus on him." Debbie looked hurt, but she nodded and said, "I will go home and get some things. I'll be back later." Kelvin didn't respond. He watched as Debbie left the hospital, her head hanging low. He turned back to the emergency ward and sat down, waiting for any news about Isaac. Days passed and Kelvin stayed by Isaac's side, sleeping in the uncomfortable hospital chairs and holding Isaac's hand whenever he could. Isaac was a brave boy, but the pain and the fear were clear in his eyes. One morning, as Kelvin was telling Isaac stories, Dr. Johnson came to see them. "Mr. Okafor, we have decided to give Isaac a wheelchair to help him move around. It's just for now, but it will make things easier for him." Kelvin nodded, trying to stay strong for Isaac. "Thank you, doctor. I will make sure he gets the care he needs." Dr. Johnson smiled kindly. "You are doing a great job, Mr. Okafor. Isaac is lucky to have you." Kelvin looked at his son, who was now sitting in the wheelchair. "How are you feeling, Isaac?" Isaac looked up at him with a small smile. "I'm okay, Daddy. I can move around now." Kelvin ruffled Isaac's hair. "That's the spirit, my boy. We will get through this together." Dr. Johnson put a hand on Kelvin's shoulder. "Remember, Mr. Okafor, it's important to keep Isaac active and engaged. Encourage him to do the things he loves and support him as much as you can." Kelvin nodded. "I will, doctor. Thank you." As they left the doctor's office, Kelvin pushed Isaac's wheelchair through the hospital corridors. He couldn't help but think about how much their lives had changed in such a short time. Back in the hospital room, things were different. Kelvin had tried to reach out to Debbie, but she hadn't returned. He focused all his energy on taking care of Isaac, helping him adjust to his new way of life. He made sure Isaac was comfortable, played games with him, and read him stories. One evening, as Kelvin was helping Isaac with his bedtime routine, Isaac looked up at his father and asked, "Daddy, where is mommy? Why hasn't she come back since?" Kelvin's heart ached. He didn't want Isaac to feel abandoned. "Mommy is very busy, Isaac, but don't worry, I'm here with you, and I won't leave your side." Isaac nodded, his eyes filled with trust. "I love you, Daddy." Kelvin hugged him tightly. "I love you too, Isaac. We'll get through this together." With Isaac's smile and determination, Kelvin knew they would face the challenges ahead with courage and love. No matter what happened, he would always be there for his son. Finally, the day came when Isaac was discharged from the hospital. Kelvin carefully helped Isaac into the car, securing his new wheelchair in the back. He drove home, trying to stay positive for Isaac's sake, even though his heart was heavy with worry about Debby. When they arrived home, Kelvin pushed Isaac's wheelchair up the ramp he had quickly installed. They entered the house, and Kelvin immediately noticed the eerie silence. He called out, "Debby, we are home." But there was no response. Kelvin's heart sank. He wheeled Isaac into the living room and said, "Isaac, you stay here for a moment, okay? I need to check on something." Isaac nodded, his face showing a mix of tiredness and curiosity. "Okay, Daddy, please, can you take me to my room?" Kelvin agreed and pushed him up to his room. Kelvin searched the house, moving from one room to room, but there was no sign of Debby. Panic started to set in as he entered their room. When he entered, he saw that Debby's bags were gone. He checked the closet and found it half empty, her clothes missing. Feeling a sense of dread, Kelvin opened the drawer on her side of the bed and found a letter. His hands trembled as he unfolded it and began to read. "Dear Kelvin, I'm so sorry for what I have done. I can't stand the guilt of putting Isaac in such a condition. Every time I look at him, I see my failure. I know I should be strong, but I can't. I have to leave. Please forgive me. Take care of Isaac. He needs you more than ever. With all my love, Debby." Kelvin's heart broke as he read the words. Tears flowed down his cheeks, and he sat down heavily on the bed, clutching the letter. The weight of the situation bore down on him, and he felt completely overwhelmed. "Why, Debby? Why did you leave us?" He whispered to the empty room. Suddenly, he felt a gentle touch on his arm. Startled, he looked up to see Isaac sitting in his wheelchair, watching him with wide, concerned eyes. "Daddy, why are you crying? Where is mommy?" Isaac asked softly. Kelvin quickly wiped his tears, trying to compose himself. "I wasn't crying, Isaac. Just had something in my eye." Isaac wasn't convinced. "But Daddy, I saw you. Why are you sad?" Kelvin knelt beside Isaac, forcing a smile. "Mommy had to go away for a little while, for a business, but don't worry, she'll be back soon." Isaac's eyes filled with tears. "I miss Mommy." Kelvin hugged him tightly, his own tears threatening to spill over again. "I know, Isaac. I miss her too, but we have each other, and I will always be here for you." He picked up Isaac and carried him back to his room. Kelvin put on a brave face, knowing that he had to be strong for his son. He set Isaac down on his bed and said, "Let's get you comfortable and then I will make us some dinner." Isaac nodded, still looking sad but trying to be brave like his father. "Okay, Daddy." Kelvin tucked Isaac in and then went to the kitchen to prepare some food. He felt numb as he moved around, the reality of David's departure sinking in deeper with every passing minute. As he cooked, his mind raced with thoughts of how he would manage everything on his own. He had to balance his job, take care of Isaac, and somehow find a way to explain Debby's absence without hurting Isaac more than he already was. After a while, Kelvin brought a tray with food into Isaac's room. He had made Isaac's favorite meal, hoping to lift his spirits a bit. Here you go, Isaac, your favorite spaghetti and meatballs. Isaac smiled a little, his eyes lightening up. Thank you, Daddy. You always know how to make me feel better. Kelvin sat down beside him and they ate together. Isaac talked about his time in the hospital, the nice nurses, and how he liked the wheelchair because it was kind of being in a race car. Kelvin listened, grateful for the distraction from his own swelling emotions. After dinner, Kelvin helped Isaac get ready for bed. He read him a story, one of Isaac's favorites, about a brave knight who saved his kingdom from a fierce dragon. Isaac listened intently, his eyes dropping as sleep finally took over. Kelvin kissed Isaac's forehead and whispered, "Good night, my brave boy. I love you." "Love you too, Daddy," Isaac murmured sleepily. Kelvin turned off the light and quietly left the room. He went back to the living room and sat down, feeling the weight of exhaustion and sadness settle over him. He picked up the letter from Debby again and read it once more, hoping to find some comfort in her words, but all he felt was a deep sense of loss. He knew that from this moment on, he had to be both mother and father to Isaac. He had to be strong, even when he felt like falling apart. Isaac depended on him, and he couldn't let him down. Kelvin wiped his tears and took a deep breath. One day at a time, he told himself, "We will get through this. Isaac and I will be okay." With that resolve, he went to bed, hoping that tomorrow would bring a bit of light to their dark situation. He knew the road ahead would be tough, but he was determined to face it with all the love and strength he had for his son. The next morning, Kelvin was in the kitchen making breakfast. He had managed to get a few hours of sleep, but his mind was still heavy with worry. He wanted to make sure Isaac started his day with a good meal, so he was preparing pancakes, one of Isaac's favorites. Just as he was flipping a pancake, his phone rang. He looked at the screen and saw that it was his boss, Mr. Oche. Kelvin's heart sank. He knew this call was not going to be pleasant. "Hello, sir," Kelvin answered, trying to sound composed. "Kelvin, where have you been?" Mr. Oche's voice was sharp and angry. "You have been absent for too long. Do you think this company can run itself without you?" "Sir, I'm really sorry," Kelvin began. "My son has been very sick and I needed to take care of him. He just come home from the hospital." "I don't care about your excuses," Mr. Oche interrupted. "You are supposed to be at work. You need to return to the office today or lose your job." Kelvin felt panic rising in his chest. "Please, sir, I can't leave Isaac alone. He needs constant care, and more he has right now." Mr. Oche's tone was cold. "I have done my best to accommodate you, Kelvin, but this is business. If you are not back at work today, consider yourself fired." With that, Mr. Oche hung up the phone. Kelvin stood there, the phone still in his hand, feeling a wave of despair wash over him. Losing his job would be a huge blow, but leaving Isaac alone wasn't an option either. Isaac wheeled himself into the kitchen, noticing the troubled look on his father's face. "Daddy, why do you look so sad?" he asked, his eyes full of concern. Kelvin forced a smile, trying to hide his worry. "It's nothing, Isaac. Don't worry about it. Let's have breakfast first, okay?" Isaac wasn't convinced, but he nodded and started eating his pancakes. As they ate, Isaac looked up at his father and asked, "Daddy, when will you be going back to work?" Kelvin's heart ached at the question. "Soon, Isaac. Very soon. But right now, my job is to take care of you." That evening, while Kelvin was helping Isaac with his evening routine, his phone rang again. It was Mr. Oche. Kelvin answered, dreading the conversation. "Kelvin, you didn't show up at work today," Mr. Oche said angrily. "You are fired. Come to the office tomorrow and collect your termination letter." Kelvin tried to beg. "Please, sir, I need this job. My son." Mr. Oche cut him off. "I have made my decision. Goodbye." And with that, he hung up. The next day, Kelvin left Isaac with a neighbor he trusted and went to his office. He felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach as he walked through the familiar doors. He went straight to the secretary's desk. "Good morning, Kelvin," the secretary said, looking sympathetic. Mr. Ochei has instructed me to give you this. She handed him a sealed envelope. Kelvin took the envelope, feeling a deep sense of defeat. Can I please see Mr. Ochei, just for a moment? The secretary shook her head. I'm sorry, Kelvin. He's made it clear he doesn't want to see you. Kelvin thanked her and left the office, the envelope feeling like a heavy weight in his hand. He walked slowly back to his car, his mind racing with thoughts of what he would do next. How would he support Isaac without a job? When he got home, he tried to put on a brave face for Isaac. He didn't want his son to worry. Hey buddy, I'm back. Let's have some lunch, he said, trying to sound cheerful. Isaac looked at him with worried eyes. Daddy, are you okay? You seem sad. Kelvin couldn't hold it any longer. He sat down beside Isaac and took a deep breath. Isaac, there is something I need to tell you. I lost my job today. Isaac's eyes widened. Oh no, Daddy. What are we going to do? Kelvin smiled, trying to reassure him. We will be fine, Isaac. I will find another job. We just have to stick together and be strong. Isaac reached out and took his father's hand. It's okay, Daddy. Don't worry. We'll get through this together. Kelvin felt a surge of love and pride for his son. Thank you, Isaac. You're right. We'll get through this. Over the next few days, Kelvin started looking for job opportunities. He sent out resumes, made phone calls, and visited different companies. It was a challenging time, but he was determined to find a way to support Isaac. Despite the uncertainty, Kelvin remained positive for Isaac's sake. He continued to help Isaac with his daily routines, encouraging him to stay active and engaged. They played games, read books, and talked about their hopes and dreams. One evening, as they were sitting together watching a movie, Isaac turned to Kelvin and said, Daddy, I believe in you. You are the best dad in the world, and I know you will find a new job soon. Kelvin hugged his son tightly. Thank you, Isaac. Your belief in me means a lot. And no matter what happens, we will always have each other. As the days turned into weeks, Kelvin continued his job search with determination. He faced many rejections, but he never gave up. His love for Isaac and his desire to provide for him kept him going. Through it all, Kelvin realized that they were stronger together. Despite the challenges, they found joy in the little moments and supported each other with love and kindness. Time went by, and despite Kelvin's best efforts, he was unable to secure a new job. The rejections piled up, and each one felt like a heavy weight on his shoulders. He tried to stay optimistic for Isaac's sake, but stress was taking its toll. Their savings were dwindling rapidly, and he knew they didn't have much left at all. One morning, as Kelvin was preparing a simple breakfast for Isaac, he realized that their pantry was almost empty. They had only a few basic items left, and the little money he had was barely enough to buy groceries, let alone cover Isaac's medication. Kelvin sat down at the table, his head in his hand, feeling the crushing weight of their situation. Isaac wheeled himself into the kitchen, noticing his father's distress. Daddy, are we going to have breakfast today? He asked innocently. Kelvin forced a smile. Yes, Isaac, we'll have breakfast. I'm just thinking about what we can make. He checked through the cupboards and managed to put together a small meal for them. As they ate, Kelvin knew he couldn't wait any longer to find a way to support them. He needed to take action, even if it meant doing odd jobs just to get by. Later that day, Kelvin decided to head out into the street to look for any kind of work. He hated the thought of leaving Isaac alone, but he had no choice. He gave Isaac a big hug and said, I need to go out and find some work, Isaac. I won't be gone too long. Please be careful and stay in your wheelchair, okay? Isaac nodded, his eyes full of trust. Okay, Daddy, I'll be careful. Kelvin left the house with a heavy heart, determined to find some way to make a little money. He walked through the street, asking at shops and businesses if they needed any help. He offered to do anything, cleaning, carrying goods, anything that would pay him a little money. The work was hard and often demeaning, but Kelvin didn't care. He needed to provide for Isaac. On good days, he managed to earn a small amount that he used to buy food and medicine. But there were days when he came home empty handed, feeling the stench of failure. One evening, Kelvin returned home exhausted. He opened the door and found Isaac on the floor next to his wheelchair. Isaac had tried to help himself to a glass of water and had fallen. Isaac! Kelvin rushed over, lifting his son gently back into the wheelchair. Are you hurt? Isaac shook his head, tears in his eyes. I'm okay, Daddy. I just wanted some water. Kelvin hugged him tightly, his heart breaking. I'm so sorry, Isaac. I should be here for you. I promise I'll find a way to make things better. Isaac held onto his father, sensing his deep sadness. It's okay, Daddy. I know you are trying your best. Kelvin spent the rest of the evening making sure Isaac was comfortable and had everything he needed. He prepared a simple meal and they ate together in silence. The weight of their situation hung heavy in the air. The days turned into weeks, and Kelvin continued his struggle. He went out every day looking for work and doing whatever jobs he could find. Some days were better than others, but many times he returned home with little or nothing. It pained him deeply to see Isaac go to bed hungry, but he tried to keep their spirit up. Daddy, I believe in you, Isaac would say, his small voice filled with hope. We are going to be okay. Kelvin would smile and nod, even though he felt the gnawing worry in his heart. Yes, Isaac, we are going to be okay. One particular difficult day, Kelvin had worked from morning till evening, only to come home empty handed. He felt the sting of failure more acutely than ever. As they sat down for dinner, which consisted of only a few pieces of bread, Isaac noticed his father's downcast expression. Daddy, don't be sad, Isaac said, trying to cheer him up. We have each other, and that's what matters most. Calvin looked at his son, his eyes brimming with tears. You're right, Isaac. We do have each other. And as long as we have each other, we can get through anything. Isaac smiled and reached out to hold his father's hand. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Isaac. Calvin replied, squeezing his son's hand gently. And I promise I'll keep trying. I won't give up. Despite the hardships, their love for each other never wavered. They faced each day with hope and determination, finding strength in their bond. Kevin knew that as long as they had each other, they could weather any storm. As the weeks continued to pass, Kelvin kept pushing forward. He did everything he could to ensure Isaac had what he needed, even if it meant going without himself. And through it all, he never stopped believing that one day things would get better. Together, they faced each challenge with courage and love, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could overcome anything. And in those moments of quiet determination, they found the strength to keep moving forward, one day at a time. One evening, Kevin came home exhausted from another day of hard work. As he opened the front door, he called out, Isaac, I'm home, expecting to hear his son's cheerful response, but there was only silence. A chill ran down his spine and he hurried into the living room. There, he saw Isaac lying on the floor, looking unconscious. Fear gripped Kelvin's heart and he rushed to his son's side. Isaac, Isaac, wake up, he cried, gently shaking him, but Isaac didn't respond. Kelvin scooped Isaac into his arms, his heart pounding with fear. He ran out of the house, desperately looking for help. They had sold their car a few months back to pay for Isaac's medications, so he had to find a taxi. Help! Somebody please help! Kelvin shouted as he stood by the roadside, waving frantically. A taxi pulled over and the driver rolled down the window. What's wrong? The driver asked, his eyes widening as he saw Isaac. Please, take us to the hospital. My son is unconscious, Kelvin begged. The driver nodded and quickly unlocked the doors. Kelvin got into the back seat, still holding Isaac tightly. Thank you, he murmured as the taxi sped towards the hospital. At the hospital, nurses rushed to their aid as soon as Kelvin explained the situation. Isaac was whisked away into the emergency ward, leaving Kelvin standing anxiously in the waiting area. Minutes felt like hours as he paced back and forth, his mind racing with worry. Finally, the doctor came out. Mr. Okafor, your son is stable for now, but he needs surgery to get better. He will regain consciousness soon, but we need to act quickly. Kelvin felt a glimmer of hope. Thank you, doctor. Please go ahead with the surgery. The doctor hesitated. We need payment before we can proceed. At least half of the surgery costs need to be covered upfront. Kelvin's heart sank. He had no money left. He had spent everything on Isaac's previous treatment and their daily needs. Doctor, please. I don't have the money right now, but I promise I will get it. Please start the surgery. The doctor shook his head sympathetically. I'm sorry, Mr. Okafor, but hospital policy requires payment before we can proceed. We need to ensure that the cost will be covered. Kelvin's mind raced. He couldn't let Isaac suffer because of money. Please, doctor, isn't there anything you can do? I'll find a way to pay. I just need a little time. The doctor looked at Kelvin with pity. I wish I could help, but my hands are tied. We need at least half the payment to start. Kelvin nodded, his throat tight with fear and frustration. I understand. Thank you, doctor. He turned away, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. He couldn't let Isaac down, but he had no idea how to get the money. He left the hospital and paced back and forth outside, racking his brain for a solution. Who could he turn to for help? His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, but he couldn't think of anyone who could lend him such a large amount of money on such short notice. Desperation gnawed at him. He couldn't bear the thought of Isaac suffering because of his inability to pay. He sank to a bench outside the hospital, his head in his hands, trying to come up with a plan. Kelvin decided to try Debbie's number, but it wasn't connecting. He felt a pang of frustration and sadness. He needed help desperately, and he didn't know where to turn. As a last resort, he called his friend Douglas. The phone rang, and to Kelvin's relief, Douglas picked up. Hello, Douglas, it's Kelvin, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Hey, Kelvin, long time no see. How have you been? Douglas responded cheerfully. Douglas, I need your help. Isaac is in the hospital, and he needs surgery. I don't have the money to pay for it. Can you lend me some? I will pay you back as soon as I can. Kelvin pleaded, his voice breaking. There was a brief silence on the other end before Douglas said, Kelvin, I'm really sorry, but things are tight for me too. I can't help you this time. Then without another word, he hung up. Kelvin stared at his phone in disbelief as he tried to call Douglas again, but his calls went straight to voicemail. Douglas had turned off his phone. Feeling utterly abandoned, Kelvin was left standing outside the hospital, more confused and desperate than ever. With no other options, Kelvin started walking aimlessly through the streets of Port Harcourt, his mind racing with thoughts of how he could get the money for Isaac's surgery. As he walked, he passed by an electronics shop and an idea struck him. It was a desperate, reckless idea, but he was running out of time. He walked into the store, trying to look as casual as possible. The shop was busy with customers browsing and salespeople assisting them. Kelvin approached one of the salesboys, who was showing a customer a new phone. Good afternoon, Kelvin said, trying to sound calm. I'm interested in buying an iPhone 15 Pro Max. Can you show me one? The salesboy nodded. Of course, sir. Please follow me. Kelvin followed the salesboy to a glass display case where the latest models were showcased. The salesboy took out a sleek, shiny iPhone 15 Pro Max and handed it to Kelvin. It's a beautiful phone, the salesboy said. It cost 2.3 million naira. Kelvin's heart raced as he held the phone. Isaac's hospital bill was 1.5 million naira. If he could sell this phone quickly, he could pay for Isaac's surgery and have enough left for food and other necessities. He looked around the store, trying to act normal. Can you show me another phone? Maybe something a bit cheaper, he asked, his mind working on how to execute his desperate plan. Sure, sir. Just a moment. The salesboy replied, turning to get another phone from the display. The moment the salesboy's back was turned, Kelvin seized his chance. He clutched the iPhone 15 Pro Max tightly and bolted out of the store. He ran as fast as he could, his heart pounding on his chest. Ole! Ole! Thief! The salesboy shouted as soon as he realized what had happened. People in the busy street of Port Harcourt turned their heads at the commotion and saw Kelvin running with the stolen phone. A group of men immediately started chasing after him, shouting, Stop that thief! Catch him! Kelvin's legs burned as he pushed himself to run faster. He zigzagged through the crowded street, trying to lose his pursuers, but they were relentless. He could hear their footsteps getting closer and the shouts of angry people echoing around him. His mind raced with thoughts of Isaac and how desperate he was to save his son. The fear of getting caught was overshadowed by the fear of losing Isaac. He couldn't stop now. He had to keep going. As he ran, Kelvin glanced back and saw the crowd gaining on him. Panic surged through him. He darted down an alleyway, hoping to find a place to hide, but it was a dead end. He was trapped. Kelvin turned to face the oncoming crowd, his breath raged and his heart pounding. He clutched the stolen phone, knowing he had made a terrible mistake, but also knowing he had no other choice. The men closed in on him, their faces twisted with anger. Please, I need this money to save my son, Kelvin shouted, his voice desperate and pleading. I'm sorry, I have no other choice. The crowd didn't care about his explanation. They grabbed him roughly, and someone snatched the phone from his hand. The shout of Ole thief grew louder, and Kelvin felt a sense of hopelessness wash over him. He had failed Isaac, and now he would face the consequences of his actions. As the crowd began to beat Kelvin, he tried to shield himself from the blows. Suddenly, a voice shouted, "Stop!" The crowd hesitated, and Kelvin looked up through his tears to see who had come to rescue him. To his surprise, it was his childhood best friend, Emenike. Emenike had relocated with his parents when they were much younger, and Kelvin hadn't seen him in years. Emenike was now the owner of the electronics store. Let him be, Emenike commanded the men who had been attacking Kelvin. The men tried to explain that Kelvin was a thief, but Emenike cut them off. I said leave him alone. Emenike helped Kelvin to his feet and hugged him tightly. Kelvin, overwhelmed with emotion, broke down in tears, unable to speak. Emenike looked at him with shock and concern. Kelvin, what happened to you? He asked gently. Emenike led Kelvin to a nearby restaurant and ordered some food for him. Kelvin, still shaking, sat down and tried to gather his thoughts. Emenike placed a plate of food in front of him and said, eat something, Kelvin. You look like you haven't had a decent meal in days. Kelvin took a few bites, the warmth of the food bringing some comfort. Thank you, Emenike, he said, his voice trembling. Thank you for saving me from those men. Emenike shook his head. Don't thank me yet. Tell me what happened. Why were you stealing from my store? Kelvin sighed deeply and began to narrate his ordeal. He told Emenike about Isaac's illness, the mounting medical bills, and how he had lost his job, and also how his wife left. He explained how desperate he had become and how he had seen no other way to get the money needed for Isaac's surgery. Emenike listened intently, his expression growing more serious with each word. When Kelvin finished, Emenike leaned back in his chair, looking troubled. Kelvin, I had no idea you were going through all this. I'm so sorry. Kelvin looked down at his hands, feeling ashamed. I didn't know what else to do, Emenike. I was desperate. Emenike reached across the table and placed a hand on Kelvin's shoulder. It's okay, Kelvin. You are trying to save your son. I understand. Kelvin nodded, tears welling up in his eyes again. I don't know where else to turn. Thank you for not letting them hurt me. Emenike stood up and helped Kelvin to his feet. Come on, let's go to the hospital. I want to see Isaac and make sure he's okay. They left the restaurant and got into Emenike's car. The drive to the hospital was filled with a mix of relief and anxiety. Kelvin couldn't believe he had found Emenike again, and he hoped that his old friend could really help Isaac. When they arrived at the hospital, Emenike went straight to the front desk. I need to clear the medical bills for Isaac Okafor. How much do I owe? The receptionist looked up the information and told him the amount. Without hesitation, Emenike took out his wallet and paid the bill in full. Please, make sure the surgery is carried out immediately, he instructed the staff. Kelvin stood by, overwhelmed with gratitude. Emenike, I don't know how to thank you, he said, his voice choked with emotion. Emenike smiled and patted Kelvin on the back. You don't have to thank me. We are friends, and friends help each other. Let's focus on Isaac for now. They waited in the hospital while the doctors prepared for Isaac's surgery. Emenike stayed by Kelvin's side, offering support and reassurance. Kelvin felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. The hours seemed to stretch on forever as they waited for news. Finally, The doctor came out and approached them. Mr. Okafor, the surgery was successful. Isaac is in recovery now. He will need some time to heal, but he's going to be okay. Kelvin felt a wave of relief wash over him. He hugged the doctor and then turned to Emenike. Thank you, Emenike. You saved Isaac's life. I don't know how I will repay you. Emenike shook his head. There is no need to repay me, Kelvin. Just take care of Isaac and make sure he gets better. That's all I want. As they sat by Isaac's bedside, waiting for him to wake up, Kelvin couldn't help but feel incredibly grateful. He had been through so much, but finding Emenike again had been a blessing. He looked at his friend and said, I'm so happy to see you again, Emenike. You have given me hope when I had none left. Emenike smiled warmly. I'm glad I could help, Kelvin. And I'm happy to see you too. Let's make sure Isaac gets all the love and care he needs to recover fully. Isaac slowly opened his eyes, blinking as he adjusted to the light. Daddy, is that you? He whispered, his voice weak but filled with hope. Kelvin leaned over and took Isaac's hand. Yes, Isaac, I'm here. You are going to be okay. You had a surgery, and now you just need to rest and get better. Isaac smiled faintly, his eyes closing again as he drifted back to sleep. Kelvin looked at Emenike, his heart full of gratitude. Thank you for being here, my friend. You have made all the difference. Emenike nodded. We'll get through this together, Kelvin. You and Isaac are not alone. As Kelvin sat by Isaac's side, he felt a renewed sense of strength and hope. With Emenike's support, he knew they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. For the first time in a while, Kelvin felt that everything was going to be alright. As time went by, Isaac felt better and stronger. His recovery was nothing short of miraculous, and soon the doctors declared him well enough to go home. Kelvin was overjoyed, and as he watched Isaac walk out of the hospital on his own two legs, free from the confines of the wheelchair that had defined their lives for so long. Thank you, Daddy, Isaac said, holding his father's hand tightly. Thank you for everything. Kelvin's heart swelled with pride and gratitude. You are welcome, my boy. I'm so proud of you. We are going home and things are going to be better from now on. Emenike was waiting for them outside the hospital. He had been a constant support throughout Isaac's recovery, providing not only emotional support but also financial help. He hugged Kelvin and Isaac warmly. Congratulations, Isaac. You are a brave young man, he said, smiling down at the boy. Thank you, Uncle Emenike. Isaac replied, smiling brightly. They went home, and for the first time in a long while, the house was filled with laughter and hope. Emenike continued to help them, giving them money for food and other necessities. One day, he approached Kelvin with an offer. Kelvin, why don't you come and learn my line of business? You can work with me and support Isaac. We'll make sure you never have to go through such tough times again. Kelvin felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. Thank you, Emeka. I don't know how to repay you for everything you have done for us. Emenike shook his head. You don't need to repay me, just focus on rebuilding your life and take care of Isaac. A few days later, Kelvin went to visit Emenike at his office to start learning the business. As he walked into Emenike's office, he noticed a large wedding photo hanging on the wall. He froze in shock. The bride in the picture was Debby. Emenike, Kelvin said, his voice trembling. How do you know Debby? Emenike looked surprised. Debby is my wife. We met on Instagram a few months ago. Why do you ask? Kelvin felt a mix of emotions, sadness, anger and betrayal. He took a deep breath and said, Emenike, Debby is my wife. She abandoned me and Isaac. She is the reason Isaac was in a wheelchair for so long. She ran away and left us to suffer. Emenike's eyes widened in disbelief. What? Debby never mentioned anything about her past. She said she was single and had no children. Kelvin nodded, feeling the weight of his words. I'm telling you the truth. She left us when Isaac needed her the most. She was always too busy with her online followers and didn't care about her family. When Isaac got sick, she refused to stay with him at the hospital. She left us with nothing. Emenike was dumbfounded. He couldn't believe that the woman he married had such a dark past. He stood up abruptly. I need to go home and talk to her, he said, his voice tight with anger. Kelvin nodded. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Emenike. I never wanted this to happen. Emenike shook his head. It's not your fault, Kelvin. Thank you for telling me the truth. Emenike rushed home, his mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and anger. When he arrived, he found Debbie sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone as usual. She looked up and smiled. Hi, honey. How was your day? Emenike's face was stern. We need to talk, Debbie. Debbie's smile faded and she saw the serious expression on his face. What's wrong, Emenike? Emenike took a deep breath. I met with Kelvin today. He told me everything about you, about how you left him and Isaac, about how you abandoned your family. Debbie's face turned pale. Emenike, I can explain. It's not what you think. Emenike held up his hand to stop her. Save it, Debbie. You lied to me. You never told me about your past. You left your own son to suffer. I can't believe I married someone like you. Tears welled up in Debbie's eyes. Emenike, I'm so sorry. I was scared and ashamed. I didn't know what else to do. Emenike's voice was cold. You should have told me the truth from the beginning. I can't be with someone who lies and abandons their own child. It's over, Debbie. I want you to leave. Debbie sobbed. Please, Emenike, give me another chance. I will do anything to make it right. But Emenike shook his head. No, Debbie, it's too late. You need to go. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Debbie sobbing on the couch. He felt a deep sense of betrayal, but also a sense of relief for knowing the truth. Meanwhile, Kelvin returned home and sat down with Isaac. Isaac, there is something I need to tell you about today. He began, trying to keep his voice steady. Isaac looked at his father with concern. What is it, Daddy? Kelvin took a deep breath. I found out that Emenike is married to your mom, Debbie. She never told him about us. When I told him the truth, he was shocked and angry. Isaac's eyes widened. Mommy is married to Uncle Emenike. Kelvin nodded, yes. And he asked her to leave after finding out the truth. I know this is a lot to take in, but I wanted to be honest with you. Isaac was silent for a moment, processing the information. Then he reached out and hugged his father tightly. I'm glad you told me, Daddy. I'm glad we have each other. Kelvin felt tears welling up in his eyes. I'm glad too, Isaac. No matter what happens, we'll always have each other. As the days passed, Emenike continued to be the pillar of support for Kelvin and Isaac. He helped Kelvin learn the business and together they worked hard to build a better future. Despite the painful revelations, Kelvin felt a sense of hope and determination. After some time, Kelvin's hard work began to pay off. With the skills he had learned from Emenike and his own determination, Kelvin started his own electronics business. He spent countless hours working on his new venture, making sure every detail was perfect. Slowly but surely, his business began to grow. Kelvin's shop became known for its quality products and excellent customer service. People from all over Port Harcourt came to buy electronics from him. With Emenike's support and Kelvin's relentless drive, the business flourished. One day, Emenike called Kelvin into his office. Kelvin, I'm proud of you. Your business is doing really well. Have you thought about expanding and customizing your own products? Kelvin smiled, feeling a surge of pride. I have, actually. I think it's time to take the next step. Emenike nodded. I agree. I have some contacts abroad who can help you with that. You should start traveling to meet them and learn more about customizing your products. Kelvin was excited about the idea. He began to travel abroad, meeting with manufacturers and learning about the latest technologies. He customized his own line of electronics and soon, his products were high in demand. His business boomed and Kelvin became very rich. With his newfound wealth, Kelvin made sure Isaac had the best opportunities. He sent Isaac to the best school in the city, ensuring he had the finest education. Isaac thrived in his new environment, making friends and excelling in his studies. Despite his busy schedule, Kelvin always made time for Isaac. They spent weekends together, going on trips and enjoying their time as a family. Kelvin's life had transformed from one of struggle and hardship to one of success and fulfillment. During one of his business trips, Kelvin met a beautiful doctor named Chizaram. She was kind, intelligent, and had a warm smile that instantly made him feel at ease. They started talking and Kelvin found himself drawn to her. They shared many interests and values, and it wasn't long before they fell in love. One evening, Kelvin took Chizaram out for a romantic dinner and they sat under the stars. He took her hand and said, Chizaram, you have brought so much joy into my life. I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me? Chizaram's eyes filled with tears of happiness. Yes, Kelvin, I will marry you. They had a beautiful wedding surrounded by family and friends. Isaac was thrilled to have Chizaram in their lives. He loved her like a mother, and she loved him like a son. Their home was filled with laughter and love. One day, as Kelvin was working in his office, he received an unexpected visitor. It was Debby. She looked different, more worn and tired than he remembered. She looked at him with pleading eyes. Kelvin, I have made a terrible mistake, Debbie said, her voice trembling. I want to come back. I miss you and Isaac. Kelvin felt a surge of anger and sadness. He had moved on and he didn't want to reopen old wounds. Debbie, it's too late. I have built a new life and I'm happily married to Chizaram. Isaac and I don't need you anymore. Please don't come back. Debbie's eyes filled with tears. But Kelvin, I'm so sorry. I have changed. Kelvin shook his head firmly. You abandoned us when we needed you the most. I can't trust you again. Stay away from Isaac and me. We are happy now and I don't want to see you anymore. Debbie left, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Kelvin watched her go, feeling a sense of closure. He had finally put the past behind him and could focus on the future with Chizaram and Isaac. Emenike also found happiness again. He remarried a wonderful woman and they built a happy life together. Kelvin and Emenike remained close friends, supporting each other through the ups and downs of life. Years passed and Kelvin's business continued to grow. He traveled the world, customizing and selling his products. His wealth increased, but he never forgot where he came from or the struggles he had faced. He remained humble and grateful for the life he had built. As he grew into a smart, kind, and talented young man, he excelled in school and made his father proud every day. Chizaram's love and care had a profound impact on him, and he often referred to her as his mother. One sunny afternoon, Kelvin, Chizaram, and Isaac sat in their backyard, enjoying a picnic. Isaac looked at his father and stepmother, a smile playing on his lips. I'm so happy, Daddy. We have come a long way, haven't we? Kelvin nodded, his heart full of love and pride. Yes, Isaac, we have, and I couldn't have done it without you and Chizaram. Chizaram squeezed Kelvin's hand. We are a family, and families stick together no matter what. They spent the rest of the day talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. The sun set, casting a warm glow over their home, symbolizing the love and happiness that filled their lives. Kelvin reflected on his journey, from the struggles and hardship to the success and joy he now experienced. He knew that life would continue to have its challenges, but with Chizaram and Isaac by his side, he felt ready to face everything. As they sat together, Kelvin whispered a silent prayer of gratitude. He had found love, success, and most importantly, he had found a family that supported and cherished him. He knew that as long as they had each other, they would live happily ever after. And so, Kelvin, Chizaram, and Isaac lived their days filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a bright future, forever grateful for the journey that had brought them together. This story teaches us that even when times are very hard, we should never give up. Kelvin faced many problems like losing his job and his wife leaving him, but he kept trying and working hard. With the help of his good friend Emenike, Kelvin started a new business and became successful. The story also shows the importance of family and love. Kelvin always took care of his son Isaac, even when things were tough. When Kelvin found love again with Chizaram, their family became happy and strong. The lesson here is to never lose hope, work hard, and appreciate the people who love and help you. With determination and support from loved ones, you can overcome any challenge. Thanks for watching this amazing story about Kelvin and his family on African Stories. If you liked it and felt inspired with their journey, please show your support by clicking the like button, sharing with your friends, and leaving a comment below. To see more interesting stories and learn about different cultures, subscribe to African Stories, and don't forget to ring a notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to you. Until we meet again, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep smiling.